Hello,
Live.
everybody.
Hello.
Or I'll just double check because technology. We're live.
Brilliant.
Good evening, everybody. Hope you're all well and keeping safe and doing all the fun stuff that you can do in the confines of your own walls. We are absolutely delighted to have Aziz Ibrahim on this evening. Aziz, thanks very much for joining us. Really
Hey, thanks for getting my name right.
Yeah, no worries at all, mate. Aye, that's my whole bit. I'm not going to speak the rest of the time. That's all downhill from here.
It's not easy, you know. The only way that I can recommend how to say my surname is there's a song, and you'll have to admit to being a Queen fan, right? And there's a song on an old Queen album called Jazz, and there's a song on it called Mustafa Ibrahim. Mustafa it's called, and he goes Mustafa Ibrahim. A proper old Queen tune, but
I've never heard of that tune actually.
Have you not? Yeah, old album. It's like it's called Jazz, and it's got like concentric circles, like.
Oh right. I'm into Queen right enough. Do you like Queen yourself?
I grew up with, certain pieces of vinyl, and that Queen album. Yeah, Fat Bottom Girls and tunes like that were on it. And they were quite, it was more rock and roll then for me personally, before the kind of the introduction of all the keyboards and stuff and so on. Production, but it was big production then, but no, I did. I gotta admit, I do.
It's the production for me. In fact, me and Rooney actually a couple of weeks ago just went through Queen on YouTube. We were sitting on Zoom, song for song, weren't we? We're just going, listen to that. Listen to the drums.
And then it's 5 a.m. You're like, I better get up now and just do something. Good evening, Davey. Thanks for joining us, mate.
All right, Dave.
Yes, Dave.
Was that your earliest sort of influence then, or did you have what sort of music caught your eye or your ear, I suppose, early on?
The earliest influence was That'll Be the Day.
Oh, right.
That's the earliest influence, and Summertime Blues.
So sort of rockabilly stuff, and
I was big into rockabilly first. I always say probably the first rockabilly, Pakistani rockabilly in England. But I was big into Eddie Cochran. Buddy Holly was a big influence.
Yeah.
Other stuff like that. Even the Burt Weedon Learn to Play Guitar book, stuff like that. Mm-hmm. Elvis. But it was all from like vinyl, really, or a reel-to-reel they used to have at the time. That these recordings were on it, left by somebody on this machine that we had in the house.
So when did you start playing guitar then?
Well, I started playing air guitar around that time, when I was 7 years old, 8. So I was 7, but a bit younger when I was playing air guitar. But 7 years old was when I got my first guitar. 7, 8, something like that. And it just got an acoustic guitar, £5.
£5.
Half my dad's wages.
You can get a set of strings for £5 these days.
I know. This day and age, it's another world, bro.
And was that it, man? Was it just the minute you got it, it was like, right, this is what I want. This just feels so right. Was there ever any doubt? Was it just straight in?
It was at school, the first kind of inspiration to buying a guitar, because school teacher used to play his guitar, used to get his guitar out. You get your free milk. You're probably too young to remember this, but you used to get free milk, and you had your bottle of milk, and everybody would quiet down, and teacher used to get the guitar out and play a few tunes, Streets of London and things like that.
Ralph McTell.
Yeah.
Me and Andy went to school together for all through school, and I sincerely believe that not a single one of the teachers I ever came across would have been able to play guitar, and it would have been the strangest experience. Genuinely, I would just be like, "What's going on here?" We did the milk.
It was 5p, but the milk was 5 pence.
That's right. You had to pay for it. That's right.
Yeah. Free milk.
try and persuade
was free. Mum and Dad paid it, yeah.
Yeah, that's it. So was it just what did you start playing in bands, or did you just like how did that?
Yeah, very early.
Yeah, really early. Was that?
Next door neighbour was a rockabilly.
Right.
Maxie, his name was, and he got me into it. And as soon as I got an electric guitar, so I was probably around 12 then, and started going to the pub with this oversized guitar, bigger than me, playing Shadows, things like that, playing the Shadows and Buddy Holly and anything really. And then Stray Cats later on because it got a bit more technical. So I want to learn all those Brian sets of moves.
Talking about technical, I saw a video of you the other day playing delay without a delay pedal. How do you even think of that?
Several of those.
I think it was. Was it for? It was Anderton's music.
And for Anderton's, it's one of my favourites, and we'll do adverts. So this is by a company called Providence, and the reason I love this delay pedal is because it has a display on it which tells you the BPM in milliseconds.
All right.
Whenever you're in a studio, a guy on the computer on your session is always telling you, when you say, "What's the tempo?" and he goes, "It's 130 BPM," and you go, "Yeah, but what's that in milliseconds?" There's a little switch on it, and LED and reads out and tells you what BPM is. Really useful. A company called Providence. What else can I show you? My first, I'll show you my first ever echo pedal. Right. I nicked this from my brother. My older brother plays as well, and he bought it because I didn't have money. And echo pedals are the most expensive pedals you could buy when you're young. You can afford the Boss DS1, the distortion, but this is the Ibanez analog delay. Oops. So
I know the camera.
Yeah, there you go. You can see how battered it is. This is from the 70s, late 70s, I think.
It's got character.
Yeah, it's got character. All right. It's got the dents and everything to show.
Do you say that as well? If you like chip one of your good guitars, it's character that just makes you feel better for a few seconds when you ding the guitar.
That was exactly. It's all good. I mean, that was my first delay pedal, and you either bought the Boss delay or you bought the Ibanez one, and that has a slightly longer delay. So we're going all technical now. Oh, yeah.
Well, I mean, that's what it's all about.
I'm just sat right next to my pedal collection. So my latest delay is this one. Is this one.
And what one's that?
This is the Chase Bliss Mood, which is a combination of weird effects of micro looping device, and the other side of it has a delay section with all manner of. It's got look at that for controls nowadays. Dip switching galore, ridiculous.
So, how often do you spend with a pedal? Do you go through
every day?
Every detail and messing about and
every day. Every day. I mean, don't even get me into my electro-harmonic section collection.
And I mean, because that was interesting, because that was the interview that we're talking about. You'd said on it, I think they were talking about when you'd started getting into reggae, and and that was when you'd basically played delay without having a pedal.
Actually, stay right there.
All right.
You stay right there. I don't know why I didn't do this earlier. But everyone should have one of these. This is a Yamaha Guitarlele.
A Guitarlele?
Yeah, it's a Guitarlele. Yeah, I mean, a lot of people make them, but Yamaha make a really good one. So I got this one, and it's just a guitar. It's like a ukulele, but it's guitar tuning. So you can play all those tunes easily for you now. But yeah, you're talking about the echo thing.
That's delay sort of thing, and it was I think you said on the
I think I did this, didn't I?
That was it.
Aye.
So you couldn't afford the pedal, so you had to mimic it. So it was really in reggae, you used to do a lot.
Yeah. Do you know, it was actually strange because me and Andy ended up watching it, and it was one of those things that the first time I watched it, Andy'd seen it before, so he was the heads up on me, and he was like, "How cool was that?" And I was like, I was so confused at first because I genuinely just thought he must have a pedal there. I was like, "This is ridiculous."
I remember now because I mean, there was Lee Anderton there, and there was Rob Chapman, and also mental block now. Rabea with the big afro.
Right.
And good players and great players, and it was Rob that kind of picked up on it, and he said because he said, "Did you see what he just did there?" And Lee went, "Yeah, fine." You didn't see what he did.
I didn't. Totally. So, even though I was like, that was really cool. I was like, oh wait, that's insane. That was crazy. I mean, but what was that like then? So you just obviously spent so much time technically getting it to that point, or just getting that good. But then, what was it like when you got your first pedal? Like when you get to plug that in and realize you just change the whole game.
Yeah, I mean, you dream of owning pedals like this, and that's the fun part of it. What you can't afford. One day having one, it's like dreaming of a Ferrari or something. Maybe you'll never have one, but the dream's the best part of it. So I used to dream of these pedals and the wah-wah pedal there. I've got a wah-wah pedal, so I used to use the bass strings. You should do them kind of things because you haven't got one. What are you going to do?
Yeah.
And nowadays you see guys, beating, rhythms out of the body of the guitar. And so, it's never ending what you can do with a guitar. I mean, I'm probably more interested in those kind of tones I create where it's emulation of. For a guitarist who doesn't have a plectrum. Yes, I do have a plectrum. So I like emulating sounds now of different instruments. Whatever it is, I try to get weird sounds out. So I like Oriental instruments. It's really easy to get those kind of. I play it right down there.
Yeah.
To get that really high pitched sound or that kind of.
So cool, man. I mean, and a lot of that, I suppose, as well, is like the span of your career with the amount of variation in terms of like the musical backgrounds of the bands and the people you've played with. Like, you've definitely got like the stuff that I've listened to of yours. The sound is really quite unique. Did you feel like, did it all culminate at one point, or do you feel like it was just constantly a progression? Like when you went from like a progressive rock to, like the Stone Roses and then everything else, it just kind of came together. Do you feel like you're getting that sound? Did you feel like you've got something at this point where you're like, no, that's because for other people, like for me, I can hear like your sound that because there's definitely that influence where you play a lot like a lot of Oriental instruments where you play a lot of semitones up. And you don't play the traditional 12 structure. It seems that you sort of pick a lot of notes that aren't where you would traditionally think as a musician you would go. I would probably go there. I think
Yeah, each period, as you were saying, for me, it was that I've evolved every time there's been a change in my musical life or different band or working with new people. And, the Roses was quite, that was a dramatic change in my life. Instruments, before then I was probably more of a shredder type of player. And I kind of, yeah, so all the axes I had were like 8 strings. And this is early days when people didn't, they didn't make a commercial 7-string, 8-string guitar, but I had prototypes because I had an Ibanez endorsement of the Japanese company Ibanez, and so I was into that kind of style of playing. But when I joined the Roses, I had to completely learn a new way of playing, almost like reverse engineer myself, because all those, like you say, the habits I had to shed all those habits. And it started off with me lowering my guitar strap so low so that I couldn't play any of those things with my hands. And I couldn't play any of the shapes and patterns, which is great, because what I found was that I had to develop identity, and to develop identity, I had to cast off all the cliches and cast off everything that was a kind of like you said, you go into these inbuilt patterns, especially for guitarists. We learn this scale. Everyone knows those cliches. You've heard them a million times, and the shapes as well. Those shapes. So I had to kind of lose all of that, and it's very hard. Ask any guitarist, you playing a guitar, and somebody says, "Oh, you can't use a pentatonic scale or a blues scale," and you go, "Ah!" So I started to think of ways to avoid doing anything that was that nature. Even when I play a scale now, I wouldn't play a scale where I play even like 2 notes on the same string. If you get what I mean, most patterns, say like pentatonics, they're this kind of thing. Which is 2 notes. But if you play it as 1 note per string, sounds completely different then, doesn't it?
Yeah.
So I started to kind of stop myself from doing anything which was a cliche in that way. Which is not easy to begin with. But it does break the patterns, because first thing that happens with most guitars, you get into that mode of just triplets and things like that. You get into these motions of they are cliches because everyone does them. And to develop identity and style, you just got to break all those patterns up, and it's almost not important to be musical. I think it's more that's what I learned about through the Roses and through John's playing, was that it's more about letting your heart and your head be artistic and put yourself on the line, and let that artistic side of you take over, and your freedom of your playing take over, as opposed to hiding behind technicalities that you can easily do because you practice them and you're proficient at them. So and also I needed to learn new ways of playing, so that's why I started looking into other instruments, finding instruments that inspired me to learn new ways of playing a note, and rhythm as well, especially. Plenty of people can play those kind of rhythms where that's people develop like flamenco styles, classical styles and things, adapt it for the guitar. But I wanted something beyond that, so I started looking towards Vietnam and Korea or China Russia and Czech Republic or wherever, Poland, and I'd find instruments and the way styles and rhythms they play completely different, and developed a rhythm hand which is slightly different. My right hand, I'd still work on patterns of, even with like a G. That's a G. Even Punjabi rhythms and Indian rhythms, that kind of. I mean, it's a cliche in terms of kind of music. But even that rhythm itself. It just breaks the monotony and the routines of what like. But then you got to adapt these things for I don't know, a moshing tune or something like
that. Get it ready for the radio festival. taking a wee bit of everything and just try to mix it together and see what you can find.
Say again, sorry.
I'm saying just taking a wee bit of everything, mixing it together and seeing what you can actually find, see what you can come up with.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, it's all fun all over again. Enjoyment of playing the guitar again and learning new things and research, and thank God for YouTube.
YouTube's a lifesaver.
It is
a lifesaver.
You can fix anything on YouTube. Yeah. It's fix the doors. It's no worries. And
I must apologise that if I don't understand what you're saying. I've been studying, chewing the fat, and still game.
I think we just speak a bit too fast at times, don't we?
I think so. I'm trying my best as well.
I thought I'd pick you up.
And I try my best as well, because obviously you're Mank, and I was my last job. I was down there like every week, and I've got a season ticket at United and all that sort of stuff. So I'm down all the time, but it's the same. I've got a buddy of mine that's in Middleton. Every time I'm all right at the beginning of the day. Once I get a drink in me, he's like, just slow down, stop, just start writing it down. I can't deal with this. I can't.
Well, I'm not a drinking man. I'm not drinking at all because I'm fasting right now. Ramadan is upon us, and so I'm starving and I'm thirsty right now.
It's a good thing that we got you on at this point, just to really
I mean, probably here where I am, it's about 9:10. That's when I'll be able to. So not long now. It's good. Passing time.
That's it. And you mentioned obviously John, and you mentioned the Roses there. What was that like at the beginning? Like when you joined the Roses, was that?
Was apprehensive.
Was there a crossover with John, or was it just he was gone at that point? Or
initially, no, there wasn't. I just thought that they would give me a ring because they said something about they couldn't get hold of John and they wanted to get on with the demos that they were writing. So everybody was writing their own songs, or some people were writing collaboratively. So I got the feeling that John wrote on his own and the rest of the band wanted to write together. So I just thought it was that they wanted somebody to play the guitar on these new tunes they were writing, which was at that time Black Sheep, Ice Cold Cube, and Nana. There were 3 tunes that would have been on, call it the third coming. So they were the kind of tunes they were working on, and I just thought, you want me to play guitar on them? But yeah, happy to. And that's where I got to know Ian, and I got to know Manny, and Robbie and Nigel I'd known before then anyway, and it was the reason why I was invited in because of Robbie and Nigel. And the thing is, I got on really well with Ian and Manny. Well, I like to think so anyway. And I don't know what it is, but for me, it was just the fact that, the lyrics on Second Coming were that from Atlanta, Georgia to Longsight, Manchester, and being my, alongside M13 boy, it just seems to fit. The rest of the stuff I can't tell you because I wasn't there when they auditioned Kelly from Girls' School, when they contemplated Slash being in the band. But as Manny says, ain't playing with a guy who wears leather pants.
And then you went on, am I right in saying you produced Ian Brown's album, The Unfinished Monkey Business?
And I missed the beginning part of that. I've been on the what, sorry?
Did you produce Ian Brown's Unfinished Monkey Business?
I mean, the album says extra production, but yes, I did. Don't let the record company tell you otherwise. Yeah, I was involved in the production of that, majority of that album, engineering or production. There was a great engineer on that project at the beginning and a great one at the end. The one who's on at the beginning, his name was Nigel Luby, and the poor guy passed away about 10 years ago, I think. But he was, I knew Nigel, you see, from, I joined Asia, which you probably know from the some of the previous CV stuff. But he was the engineer, live house, front of house guy for Yes. Right. So he's great pedigree. And I brought him in to engineer the Unfinished Monkey Business album sessions at Chiswick Reach in London. Right. In Chiswick. A great studio, all valve, all tape. And they made their own valve EQs and compressors. And the mixing desk was the original mixing desk from the Trojans sessions.
Right.
Handmade, hand drilled holes. They weren't even like in a row. They kind of went like that. Beautiful desk. And there was a 3M 24-track 2-inch tape machine. The original recordings of Unfinished Monkey Business were done on a 4-track cassette player in my house at home. And I did them on a 4-track cassette Porter Studio. Finished the music almost, and then took it to Ian, and Ian would write lyrics, and he would transfer 4 tracks of vocals onto an 8-track reel. Right. So he put my 4 tracks onto his 4 tracks, and then he'd put his vocals onto the remaining 4 tracks. And then we went to Chiswick Reach to, finish the album or mix the album or record more things. But all of it began at home, really. Corpses, My Star, Ice Cold Cube, and See the Dawn, and loads of tracks. Nana. I mean, Nana was actually already recorded. It was recorded during the Roses sessions, like I said, when I met the Roses. And Ice Cold was revamped. I revamped that tune. But Nana definitely. But then so there's different eras of recordings. There's the early Roses stuff, which never made it, obviously, because we split in '97, and then there's new tunes which Ian and I wrote, and there wasn't anybody around, just myself, Ian Brown, and then we went into Chiswick Reach with Nigel Luby, and when he passed away, we brought in Dave Hyatt, a guy called Dave Hyatt, and we went up to. I had another mate who had a recording studio called Phil Beaumont in a place called The Forge. He runs a company called Systems Workshop, but we went to the Forge studios in a town called Oswestry. So me and Ian just went up there, and the manager, Noel, at the time, and stayed in Oswestry and completed the album there. So it's got a bit of a journey. The album's had a bit of a journey, Unfinished Monkey Business.
Moving about it. It's pretty cool you recorded it in the house as well back then. It's quite impressive, you know what I mean?
When you got a Porter Studio and you got your equipment around you, it's a lot of fun just sitting there with your Porter Studio. These Tascam things, they were fantastic. They had, they're just dead portable, battery powered, everything you need. And at that time, I actually had an Akai, which I used, an Akai MG614. So Porter Studios were just the way to go at home, in your bedroom and things, and just put down your ideas. And I just completed the music and ran virtual tracks along with the Porter Studio. I ran an Akai sampler, which I've got over here, the S2000. And I ran virtual tracks digital tracks. I ran a sync code on the tape, on the cassette 4-track, and then a sequencer played the little Boss Roland sequencer, MC500, and ran the sampler along. So I ran on the sampler, I pre-recorded the 12-string guitar on My Star, for instance. So that riff, I originally recorded the bass. Anyway, I'll get carried away if I can remember that. I ran as virtual tracks. I recorded them at home with a bass I inherited from John. Basically, when the Roses were gigging, I inherited all the equipment, the guitar equipment. So I had John's 1959 Les Paul, I had his 1959 Strat, I had the 62, 64 Strat, the Resurrection Strat, the pink one, another Les Paul, which is the one on not on Love Spreads. When he played live, a lot of videos I'd seen live, he used it for Love Spreads for the slide part. He inherited the Gibson ES345 1959, which is the one you see in the Love Spread video. Inherited the Marshalls, a Kendrick, just tons of gear. I inherited, I may as well show it to you now, seeing as I'm sat next to my collection. I inherited John's old 70s fuzz face.
Right.
One of his old fuzz faces, which I did a lot of parts on. This is a Dallas Arbiter fuzz face.
Right.
So there's a lot of pedals, and I've got which I can't pull out, but the old tape echo I inherited as well, the Echoplex. So there's a lot of equipment that came my way, and I used that on Unfinished Monkey Business and on Golden Greats.
So see, we like the using like the samplers and stuff like that. Was that just, were you just experimenting? Like,
so I was in an all black rock group because I was black. It was with my closest friends, Lawrence and Barrington Stewart. We were in a band called Gina from Ardwick and Longsight. And, the funk and the soul was part of my playing, and it always has been. I love Prince, and I always have loved that style of music. So they got me into technology and this kind of production values of Prince, Full Force, kind of the early 80s kind of productions and things like that, and Trevor Horn and whatnot. So I was already up on production. And then because I was limited for tracks, I thought, how can I get more tracks on this 4-track Porter Studio? So I thought, I don't know, run virtual tracks off my digital sampler, which had, you don't even know about the banks I robbed to get that piece of kit. And, but also I worked with my best friend, Johnny J, hip-hop DJ in Manchester. We also worked with the Roses with remixes.
Right.
And he also did Urban Cookie Crew and a guy called Gerald. And he was signed to Zomba, Jive. That's what it was.
Right.
He was on the same label the Roses were on.
Right.
And he knew, obviously, Roddy McKenna from Scotland, who signed the Roses. So he knew Roddy, very well. And his brother as well, Roddy's brother. So there was a connection there, and I got into technology through people like Johnny J and through the band Gina, and so and I just started using samplers and sequencers and things for making music at home.
That's it. Me and Rooney made a song one night with a pizza box, didn't we? that was what snare drum.
Anything goes, isn't it? Anything goes. Yeah.
Pizza box. We were rolling coins along a table with mics set up and try to pan them. And
we were talking about YouTube before, and if you watch YouTube, you'll find amazing guys who go, they set an exercise like, okay, today we're going to make a tune out of a fridge, and we're just going to record the sounds of the fridge. You watch Andrew Wong or what, somebody like that, and he'll show you sampling is the new instrument. Sampling is just sample the sounds, and then you get into Ableton or Reason or something like that, or Fruity Loops, and you can just make those sounds into beats. I do that with my phone, even my old phone, my old iPhone 6S or my iPhone 10. I use them. I use sampling apps on them.
Right.
Quickly just sampling some of it and then
see what you can make.
Pardon?
And just see what you can make.
Yeah, I mean, I got my iPhone on a stand here. I don't know if you can see that, but I got about 200 music apps on here. Each one of these is a folder with a whole series and sets of apps. So these apps here, like Koala, Koala's a great app for recording sounds. I made some sounds of my voice, you see, and
right.
Turn that up a bit. Sure, I can get that down the microphone. There we go. And this beat, for instance, that I made up, can I play the beats? Yes, I can. And effects section, you can add a few effects on there.
Brilliant.
So, and it's so easy to record a sound. You literally just press on something, I got boing, and you've recorded. Boing.
Boing. Because we were getting to the stage where we were getting fed up doing the same thing, like put a guitar down, right, let's get some lyrics. So it was just a case of, right, let's start picking things up, let's get a cup, let's hit the cup, let's do this, let's do that, let's build a beat run.
Yeah, well,
and the snare sounds amazing on it, like the pizza box. We had it with a drumstick, but it's a unique snare that you don't hear anywhere else.
When you start understanding frequencies, that's when it really works. So you understand frequencies and where the punch of a say like a bass drum is, or 808 or 909 or 505, 606, any of the rolling stuff, or if you're into DMX or you're into all behind sounds. I mean, I'm a big lover of hip hop, so and bedroom producers. You can see where it comes from. I love bedroom producers, that thing at home, and the guys that with the decks and they got something, cassette player to record on or whatever. It's kind of it's knowing frequencies to create sounds, the punch of them, or the scintillation, or whatever it may be. Anything that makes a sound, a vibration, can be recorded now. Well, it could be recorded then. Akai samplers have been out a while, but I love that side of it, the streetwise technology and where hip hop comes from, where breakdance comes from. And I always like the thing about, even like the metal grunge labels, you have the 90s, early 90s, and the independent labels, and here, Rough Trade Beggars and all that kind of thing. Labels, say like the Smiths were signed to, or other Manchester bands as well. I like independence, and I like the independence of music too. I'm not knocking. I don't want to knock people for wherever they have their outlet of music, be it TV shows or whether it be TikTok or the app or something. At least it's an output, and it's creativity. My creativity comes from independence. It comes from originality. They're the things I aim for, and it was through the Roses I kind of, found the courage to explore. Through my first album, Lahore to Longside, I kind of explored trying to find originality and trying to find identity. And ID has always been on my mind. Even now, I've been working with the Arts Council. I've been on 3 Arts Council projects, and one of them was about exploring identity, ID, not the one that was given to me, and not the one that, it's like, we're given identities. Scotland, England, Wales, Ireland, identities are really going back to times when there were no borders, or there was, you could literally walk up from one place to another. What is identity? When your next door neighbor's family live with you and you live with them as children and play together and eat at their house, or they at yours, that kind of ID. And in the same way that I spoke about playing the guitar, about finding your sound and ID, I mean, I'm a sonic guy. That's why I have so many pedals. I love textures and sounds. That, you know, why should a tune just be notes? It can be just textures. It could be ambience. It can be. I love degradation of tape. So I love what that does. You know, where that goes. There's no notes to it, and it's, you know, it's not musical in that way. Sorry, I'm trying to get back into the screenshot. All these things, ID, sonics, textures. I don't know what that means to you, but you know, that means a lot to me.
Massive. I mean, I think, as Andy was saying, we've obviously we try and write and collaborate quite a lot. And when you get away from the original sort of putting a guitar down, putting a set of keys down or whatever, you know, getting something off of that, I find that, I mean, our WhatsApps are just blown up with each other because we keep sending ideas all day, every day. But I've found that over the
idea,
you know, exactly. Yeah,
they're never finished.
Yeah, it sends me like 20 minutes worth of different ideas, and 5 minutes later, he's like, "Have you listened to all them yet?" No, not yet. But I'm finding more and more what we're putting together or what we're doing, it becomes even slightly more instrumental. The more that we're getting into it, the more technical it becomes. More about the sounds. It becomes more about what we're sampling. It's becoming more about just a variation on like you said. It's finding what the sound is that we do, as opposed to something that's, you know. And I think like hip hop were brilliant for that, because the sort of sampling influence, and then totally renovating, just changing everything to do with the song, what it was focused on. I think,
and the music is a representative of a youth culture as well, you know. So that thing about, you know, not wanting to go where your mum and dad go, and hanging out with your mates, illegal kind of warehouse parties and stuff like that. And hip hop's just the same, isn't it? Hip hop is the same as probably the indie movement. I mean, when I say indie, I mean the early indie movement in the UK, and punk as well, you know. Well, I mean, probably let's go back to that, and rock and roll as well. You know, rock and roll, rockabilly, all youth cultures, youth movements, each phase of it. And even now, you know, I feel that now that I come as connected, because I don't know if I can explain this properly, but for me personally, it's a different experience to probably other musicians, because I come from my culture, my Punjabi culture, and also from my religious culture. You know, I'm a Muslim, so there were a lot of inhibitions to escape, and the culture is kind of ingrained, and respect, and you know, I can't smash an instrument just because of the respect for it, but I had to teach myself to throw something out of a hotel room window, you know. Smash this over somebody's head. I'm not saying that. There's been occasions, you know, and shows where it's come to that. But escaping yourself, and that was a lesson in itself. And it came to a point where I started my own band, my first original band, which was with a fantastic tabla player called Dalbir Singh Ratan. And I was literally trying to teach him how to smash his tabla. I was like, mate, I don't want you to respect it. I want you to get it and throw it at somebody in the audience. I want you to knock somebody out. I want you, I want you to smash it. But it was like, I can't do that. I would be disrespecting. I know, it was like chalk and cheese. So
not getting it, mate. You're not getting it.
It took years and years to kind of try and teach somebody, but you can't, because it's culturally, it's inbuilt. You know, it's like the hierarchy, the respect built up for parents and grandparents and so forth, teachers, ustads, gurus, so forth. It's generations old. But fortunately, being born on a council estate in alongside Manchester, it kind of, there was a side of me which was like, trying to get out, trying to be free. And even now, you know, man, I don't drink or smoke, I don't do drugs, and some people are freer than I am, have more freedom in their life. And I was trying to get there. I'm trying to get to that point of freedom and freedom of expression. I know it sounds a bit arty-farty, but it's real, it's true. Trying to be free, it's not easy. For someone like me, it's not easy. And the guitar that's why I play the guitar. This was the way that I could express that freedom. It was getting there. The others with paintings, I paint and I draw, and I haven't done it in a long time, but I find that I could express more freedom through a guitar than I could. And hence why I had to undo the patterns and things that I used to play, because that's not freedom. I was locking myself in. Is that, I don't know if
that makes total sense. Yeah, man, it makes total sense. And do you think as well? I mean, I know everyone's got their own story, but I think that where you are in the country, in particular in Manchester and that surrounding area, through the period where you've grown as a guitarist and a musician. Yeah, I was going to say you've seen some of the very, very best bands and musical periods that anywhere really could have a period, and that in itself, there's.
I mean, some people don't want to mention it, but obviously my musical history in Manchester starts with Simply Red. It actually starts earlier than that. It starts with the fact that I was playing in a lot of reggae bands and dub bands. I was, you only ever saw me in reggae bands. I was in a band called Fourth Generation, and then in a band called T Dynamics, a little stint in Soda Jamal, which lasted literally like them reforming as I was in the room auditioning. So I knock on the door and then they were reformed. And then a conversation with Harlem Spirit, where we never came to gigging, or we had one jam session. And then I started working with Dennis Brown and Barrington Levy, all the big reggae soups. And what an honor and privilege it was to work with those guys, and Freddie McGregor. I was in Rebel MC at the time. The guy who wrote Street Tough and all the great tunes, Wickedest Sound. And so I met, Dennis Brown and Barrington Levy through working with, working in drum and bass and jungle, really. So you can see my background actually comes from hip hop and drum and bass and jungle and junglist bands, and working with the late Tenor, God bless him. And I know there are artists like that. And there was a reason why I Simply Red in '87, probably because Mick Hucknall was into reggae and Keith Richards as well. So he was looking for somebody who was into what he liked, and I had that background. So
was that the point where you thought, right, this is, or did you think it earlier about going, no, this is going to be my career?
I never chose music as a career. Music chose me. I was actually playing basketball.
Right.
So we were talking, you see, that's why I've been watching The Last Dance, because MJ was such a massive influence on me. I love, and you see on my social media, I'd give it all up to be in the NBA. It literally means basketball is my number one love before music. But I love music. And the fact that somebody came to me and says, do you want a full-time career in music and a world tour, and all the money they wanted to pay me, every week. And I was like, what? Music as a career? So music chose me. I didn't choose music. Before that, I was studying. My mum and dad wanted me to be a doctor. And, I just don't want to be another Dr. Saab, So I thought, why not?
How are you enjoying The Last Dance then?
Yeah, I'm loving it. Loving it.
Yeah. It's great to see as well, because I grew up with a lot of the American culture and then spent a lot of time over there, but it's great for people to now appreciate.
I envy you.
Mate, it was amazing, but it's great for people to appreciate what Jordan did in terms of
that dedication, that absolute dedication, the will to, the motivation, the will to win. Everything, even like the '95 championships, and he's like ill, he's got the flu, and he still pulls off a performance of nearly 40 points. That's unbelievable. And then to win 6 championships. I mean, I love sports in general. I started off a United fan and ended up a Sligo Rovers fan. So, I mean, that says, I like the underdog in a sense.
Yeah.
Why would I just want to support a team just because the Americans bought United, that I would continue supporting the team and the way it was going? It didn't need my support, but Sligo Rovers did. So I'm a Sligo Rovers fan. And I've got affinity for West Coast anyway. So, but I love my rugby. I was always into Welsh rugby, and then love my football. But my first love is basketball, and then after that, I like the NFL. I like the baseball. St. Louis, I love St. Louis Cardinals. I'm a Cardinals fan.
Yeah.
I do love the Bulls, but I support the worst team in the NBA, which is the Knicks.
I watched that. I try and watch the NFL. I try and watch the Super Bowl, but I've not got a clue what's happening.
Right. Okay. I love sports in general. Athletics
I like
too.
The party.
It's getting to grips with the rules and things, as you said.
The NFL's hard going. That took me a long time to get
questions in there, Rooney. Do you want to fire some questions up?
Oh yeah, Billy's got one here.
Absolutely.
What's your views on multi-effects?
You come to the right man. Multi-effects boards. I have to dot around my room while I'm answering these questions.
No worries.
But you can still hear me, though, I presume.
I can hear
definitely.
You.
That mic's brilliant.
Well, it's because I showed you the microphone I'm using. But here we go. The question was from whom? Sorry,
from Billy.
Billy. I can see it. Underwood, Mr. Underwood. Multi-effects. There we go. This is what I use. This is a Line 6 Helix. Bit expensive, mind, but you got to invest to get great sound. Yeah. So I do like multi-effects, but the recent ones like this, and they do a pod version of this, which is a lot cheaper, but it's really powerful, and they do a thing called a stomp as well. I think that things like this are just beautiful, especially, I use this as an audio I/O because it's got 8-track of digital I/O coming out of the USB, and it's also SP diff, and it's so literally I could use this as the audio I/O and the multi-effects unit. So plug a guitar into it and then straight into my computer and into my iPad, my phone. I record with my iPad and my phone a lot. I'm a big iOS Android guy because I like things that any young person can do because they own a phone or things like that,
What are you using to record? Is it just your standard recorder, or are you using a
to record, if I was recording on a computer, I've got a laptop down here, just a PC laptop, because they're cheaper than Apple laptops. I know. You can get a newer one when you made some dough back from this one. So I would use a laptop with Ableton and Pro Tools and Reason. I use whatever suits the music, but I love Ableton. I love Pro Tools just as an audio package, but you can use Logic and Cubase. I use Cubase on my iPad.
I'm Cubase through and through, Cubase loyal.
Right. So, but do you use Cubasis? Have you ever tried Cubasis?
No, because that's for the Apple, innit? That's for only on Apple. I don't think you can get it on Android.
Yeah, so that's one of the things. I because the Apple platform, the iOS platform, has got so many music apps. That's where I went. But a lot of them do cross over onto Android as well. But for instance, can I turn this? Yeah, I've got this little thing called. You can see that. I'll try and put it to the camera. Lower, higher, no lower.
That's you there.
There we go.
I've seen the app, but as I said, it was Apple.
So
is it pretty good?
So you got GarageBand, you got Cubasis, you got Beatmaker 3,
Fruity Loops, is that?
FL Studio, Fruity Loops, and Audio Pro. GarageBand is the go-to because it's free and it's so power packed that why wouldn't you use something that's free and got almost everything you need? Recording, instruments, blah blah blah. Beatmaker 3. If you're a hip hop guy and you're into Akai MPC, you're that type of beat maker with pads, fingerstyle player, Beatmaker 3. Cubasis, if you're used to the tradition of recording and and sequencing and all the instruments you get with it. Audio Pro is a new one. I just experimented with it. Fruity Loops was the hip hop thing to do, because Fruity Loops Studio, couldn't afford Apple, Macs and things, and you had a PC laptop or something. You got Fruity Loops Studio, Fruity Loops, and made dance tunes But sorry, just coming back to the that thing that Dave was asking. I like multi-effects units because I do need things which are compact and. But this day and age, these switches, I find them to be the transport system for a recording software like Cubase on there, and press record and play and rewind and change track and literally any function at all. And I love these multi-effects units. I wouldn't say that I always use them. I use them because sometimes I need an audio I/O, and you could buy a Boss unit or a Roland unit or something like that. You don't have to go with the Line 6, but I use the Line 6 stuff because I grew up with the big green delay pedal and who hasn't got? I've got 6 of those units, graveyard. Something like the Helix, I love that. The main thing is the number of outputs that you get. Ins and outs, send and return loops. That means you can put all your pedals and stuff into it. And so if you're asking me which would I recommend, I'd recommend something that gives you the sounds you like, stomp box style foot switches, a nice big screen, and also enough inputs and outputs, digital inputs and outputs. Sounds like a YouTube video now, doesn't it? But something like that. Superb. Helix, but they brought out this thing. Sorry, I'll mention one other called the Stomp IO. I think by Line 6. The reason I rate that, I think that's the future, because the future of pedals now is that people are looking for portable devices and looking for pedal boards that you don't even need an amp or a speaker behind you. The pedal board's got the amp on it. The Stomp IO is very clever because it loads amp models, the same models that are in all these big Helixes and things like that. It loads the amp models and it loads impulse responses, or you could buy a separate box. When I say an impulse response, an IR, I mean something that holds the sound of the speaker cabinet, or the IRs can be reverb units, reverbs as well, spaces. But nowadays it's speaker cabinets. Models of speaker cabs. So if you've got the amp in a model and you've got the speaker cab in a model, it's on the pedal board. And some multi-effects unit. So I would say look for a multi-effects unit that gives you these effects that you want to play with, some kind of switch outputs for wah-wah style pedals, expression pedals they call them, and foot switches, and also holds models in them, amp models and speaker models. They're only getting better and better. Whether you like them or not right now, they only get better as time goes by. So yeah, you hit something. Asking me that question.
What about recording stuff? Like, would you ever just plug into your, say you're able to use the amps and the effects on there? Or do you always go through your...
No. I'll use whatever goes. If I create a sound in Ableton using the internal plugins, then I'll use it. I love experimenting with that because it's easier for me to write the automation into Ableton for that particular, or a collection of, which I might make combine. Because I was doing that kind of thing in Reason before, in the combinators, propeller heads Reason. But then I'll go to whatever I feel. It's like I might just use the Helix because it's got everything in it that I need, or I might go to, which is kind of out of shot, is the Kemper Profiler lamps again. Because it's going to take me a lot of time to go setting up, my amp in a room and getting the mic placements and all that. It's like I've already done profiles of my mic placements and my amps, and they're all in my Kemper.
Strange that, but Billy's just mentioned that the Kempers. He mentioned the Kemper as well.
I can see that. They are unreal. It opens up such a world. I use 2 Kempers, and not a lot of people do this. I don't think. I run 2 Kempers in parallel, which is not easy because what happens, you get phasing issues and it's not a great sound. You really got to separate the phase. But what I do is I run one for effects and I run the other purely dry in a wet mix on stage, but I'm using digital amps to do that. Kemper reverbs are the most beautiful reverbs you will ever hear. If you're into ambience and stuff like that, they're unbelievable, including the delay units. I did a bit of a stint with a guy called Stephen Wilson. I don't know if you know Stephen Wilson from Porcupine Tree.
I actually looked him up the other day when I seen he was on your CV. I had a wee quick.
Tour, and then life being life for me, like you said, my experiences of music is not the same as other people's. I got refused my visa on that tour, and I was dropped out of that gig. But it was a good thing because I'm not cut out for playing for sessions for people anyway. I just wanted to get out of the road. I was living in the countryside and like a prisoner in a gilded cage. And I needed to get out on tour, and this tour came along, and I said, yeah, why not? But anyway, I was using some of the sounds I had to create. The reason I mention it is very ambient, almost ghostly sounds, and I couldn't do that with anything apart from Sublime 6 equipment and my Kempers. The Kempers are unreal. They are. And people knock them, but until you try them, you'll find that, the amp sounds and the cabinets and the effects units, and they're just getting better all the time. Because the beauty of life these days, whether you're using mobile devices or amp modelers or laptops or whatever, updates. You get updates, mate, and you don't have to pay for them most of the time.
I updated the Cubase. I had Cubase 7 and updated to 10.5 during the lockdown. I was like, right, I'll just buy it. I'll update, and I lost something like 100 plugins.
Right.
A full, Waves plugins.
I do.
A full suite of Waves, and it's gone.
Yeah, very great plugin. Oh, that's such a shame, man.
Because they don't support the Mac, the new Mac operating system.
They also design their own hardware to run their plugins, like these satellite devices that Universal Audio. Because I'm a Universal Audio endorsee, and I've been using their products for a long time. Fantastic emulation, absolutely fantastic. I mean, I run whole virtual mixers from Universal Audio. So one minute I'm running a Harris desk or a Trident or Neve consoles, and it's SSL. They're fantastic. Waves again, and a creative alternative, and also their hardware and software. The biggest problem with recording on PCs and Macs is that the operating system is not real time. That means you'll always be faced with latency. So the way that Waves and Universal Audio, they design their own hardware, they design their own software, and you make a system which kind of bypasses the issues of latency within a non-real-time operating system. I digress. Do you want to go back to another question? I'll go off on
it's brilliant, man. I love it. We do. I think we've got another one actually. Gareth, do you still own the guitar with the laser lights you made yourself?
I
do.
Story
behind this.
That guitar is out of reach, I'm afraid, because I haven't got room in. It's only a little music room I've got here, and that I've got I'm ashamed to admit it, but I've got 50 guitars, and some of the guitars, which are tour guitars, that I don't tour with anymore, but they're kind of legacy. That green, I call it the green Manalishi. Green lasers and the see-through green body. It's upstairs. So I got a rack of guitars upstairs, which I kind of look after. My main guitars that I use are here. So my main guitar at the moment, I'll show you that one. I'm going to show you that one to share with you. I'm so proud of it. I love it. Is this? It's see, my straps are all see-through, clear.
All right.
By Levy's, which you can get from West Side. I think they're in Glasgow, West Side. So anyway.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, all right.
So this is my latest guitar. I absolutely adore this guitar. This guitar just wants to be adored. It's a Jazzmaster, but this is a 60th anniversary Jazzmaster with block inlays. And I've changed a few things, like I've got these top hats witch hats, they call them. Witches' hats. Sorry, the light's a bit harsh.
Oh, no, you can see them. They're gorgeous.
It's a beautiful blue colour. I'm not a city
Is it
fan.
blue? I wasn't sure if it was white or blue. I couldn't really tell there.
Yeah, if I step back, you can see. Yeah.
Oh, aye.
Yeah.
I roll about on my wheelie chair.
That's beautiful, man.
But, I love Jazzmasters. I got in very late. When I was playing with Ian Brown, I was using a 1964 custom white Jaguar, Fender Jaguar. But then everyone kept mentioning Johnny Marr, and I thought, and John Squire as well, and I thought, no, not for me. So I got the Jazzmaster and the JMs. I love JMs. I really do. They sound so unique. And my other main guitar, don't laugh, is this. It's called Airline. I think this is a Barney Kessel model, the jazz player.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, but it's hollow. It's quite wide. It's almost like Les Paul like, but it's completely hollow. And it has, oops, I'll show it again, P90s.
Yeah.
P90 pickups. And it's quite acoustic. It's quite an acoustic sound. I love this guitar. It's only 19 frets. It's got even less frets than a Telecaster or Stratocaster.
That's really interesting with that hollow as well. I'd be curious to see if there are any braces in it for that sound quality, to get that sort of half acoustic out.
It's an absolute beauty, that guitar. I got to say, I love that. I've got another Airline, so I play Airline guitars. So in the same way we were talking about, playing guitar and looking for identity and looking for original sound. So that's why I use Airlines, because they're so unique. The sound of them is so. Yeah, I've got another Airline which I'll show you quickly.
Where are they from?
These are actually, I'm not sure where they made them, but they're probably made in Korea and assembled in Canada or something. But the actual owner's airline is in Liverpool.
Right.
So this is my main Airline. So hard to get these things in shot. So weird. I mean, look at that. Look at Charles. And this switch. Proper Frankenstein switch there. It's absolutely beautiful. I love this guitar.
It's nice.
That sunburst as well. Wow, there's a lot on there.
Lovely guitar. I love the headstock. I love the machine heads. I mean, it's not like £3,000 or anything like that, Airline guitars, they were like store guitars originally, these brands, Silvertone, Teisco, whatever, and Airline, they were the kind of cheaper end budget guitars you bought in a store, like Sears in America. Get Sears Silvertone. And
do you like what do you think of the Dan Electro guitars? They were your kind of cheaper one.
Exactly. I mean, I got a Dan Electro guitar as well, but that's what I mean. Look for things like, lipstick tube pickups and single coils, P90s. I generally tend to go for single coils and stuff. Yeah. But that green guitar we were talking about, it was a very cheap guitar, but it had ultimate sustain because the plastic, the polycarbonate was so solid. It had more sustain than my Les Paul Custom that I've got, and it's just it had beautiful sustain, but the parts were so cheap. I think it was distributed by a company called Aria, and the actual guitar's called Legend. So anyway, or Legend as I like to call it. But I kind of changed all the electronics on it. I got these green PAF Pro. Not Agnes, Damasio make a thing called a PAF Pro pickup as well, their own. Like the one they put on the Steve Vai guitars. It's a similar pickup, the early ones. And I put these green pickups on it, and then I found green knobs from Ibanez or Damasio again, actually. I got Martin Sims, who's genius with LEDs and lasers, to fit the green LEDs, which are the brightest LED. I think maybe the blue's brighter, but the green's really bright. And he put lenses on the top so they really sparkled. The other guitar that I've got is a chrome Godin. I play Godin guitars, a Canadian company. Fantastic guitar. And I built a guitar especially for Golden Greats, and it's called the Dolphins and Monkeys guitar. So I had blue dolphins and green monkeys and LEDs inlaid in the neck, and a laser that came out of the head.
Don't need to go anywhere for a disco. Turn the lights off and get them going.
To tell you the truth, I was getting a bit bored with the computer on stage, and I looked for things to keep myself interested, and it'll all be in the book.
That's
all
brilliant.
I'd made, but that was one of the things I had made. I started fitting these LEDs that Martin Sims from Sims Custom Shop fitted. And this is early days before he fitted them to anybody else's guitars. These are a prototype. So I don't know if you've been to any Ian Brown shows, but I used to have these laser rings that used to sit on each finger. So I had 10 lasers. Shoot out all the way across the halls and the gigs and venues we played.
In John Michel Jarre, he uses that, didn't he? The laser harp, or whatever you call it.
Yeah, he's always nosy, my channels.
John Jai asking.
John.
Did you love?
Yes. How much he loved Coatbridge. So John's mentioning Coatbridge as in. Oh God! What was the gig in Coatbridge? Because it was either down south or it was up north. Where's Coatbridge? Remind me.
It's just outside. Yeah, central belt. So it would have been. I suppose if you went up north, it would have been south in comparison.
Central belt
of Scotland. It's not far from Glasgow.
From Glasgow, that's it. Yeah. I remember now. There's a place I played down south, and it's not that. Yeah, I know what he's talking about. He's talking about that mad night. How many bands were playing that night in Coatbridge?
Actually had an outdoor stage, and then it get rained off.
That's where we met, wasn't it? Coatbridge.
Aye, that's right. Aye,
in Coatbridge.
I was meant to come to.
You were meant to
drive. I mean, it was literally like people were, even Mrs. was saying, why are you going to Coatbridge? You're not getting whatever. We won't even go to the financials and where you're staying and all that. It was like, I've never been before. It's across the border. It's a nice drive, and I'm playing somewhere new, and the lads invited me. Somebody invited me to come and play, and it sounds like they're
right up the M6 to Coatbridge.
It was a cracking day. It was a brilliant day right up until 7 or 8 o'clock, and then the rain just poured. As I said, the outdoor stage gets shut. The guy
I played inside, didn't I? So
the sound engineer's like, I don't want to turn any of these amps on. We'll just leave them because.
Did the soundboard not get totally wrecked as well?
I believe so. Yeah, I mean, it wasn't the maddest gig for me because it was getting my gear to the stage and getting it off. Fortunately, I had some help, which was really cool.
I was one of the guys that helped you. I took in your guitars.
I know, and I was just going to say that I was pointing. Sorry, it didn't come up, which was nice, but that was really difficult. I was like panicking, going, "How am I going to get this and then set up?" And people are talking to you as well, aren't they? It's not like a gig where you got barriers and everything. You can get as a sound check or anything. It was just on and off, wasn't it? Yeah. But we got there in the end. And
that was it. Really that's all that matters. We're all still here.
It was really enjoyable. Yeah, it was really. And
a couple more questions on here as well.
Actually. Sure.
Joe's got one.
Joe,
what would be your Desert Island disc track?
I hate that question.
I feel like for someone who's played in so many genres, that would just be the most difficult thing to answer as well. Like
would, because it'd probably be something like me telling you about a Muhammad Rafi track. I'll let them engage. Probably Pandit, Shiv Kumar Sharma or something like Ustad Shiv Kumar Sharma. That would be my dead island dish. But I know it was, no, I'll try and rein it in.
Yeah.
Difficult one, I think, my biggest love, when it comes to vocals and things like that, and Motown especially, I've got Marvin Gaye's like the ultimate for me. So something like What's Going On, I can listen to that over and over again. Just one track on repeat. Awesome, do that tune, What's Going On, Marvin Gaye. Yeah.
Brilliant. And Billy's came back with another one. Who's the best guitarist you've ever seen live?
Me. Mirror. Best guitarist I've ever seen live. Wow. Because, live performances. Now, that's something else, you see. Because some guys are great players, but they're really boring to watch. They don't do anything. And it's just the fact you're there and you're like, that's, so-and-so. But to watch. So if that question, the best guitarist, that I've ever seen live, when I watch Prince, I cannot believe that guy can dance that well and play guitar that well and do how many gigs in one night? And probably go home and record an album before you wake up.
Exactly. That's better than anything I could ever write in my life. Yeah, he just does it, and he's that good.
Andy,
I got to say,
piano and drums and everything.
16 instruments played at ultimate levels, but live, what a performer! Prince is just the ultimate performer. But you know what? The best guitarist could be the best guitarist in different genres almost and things. I remember there was a band called Was Not Was came and toured over in the UK, and I saw them, and there was a young guy, like a dual heritage looking guy with a mohawk playing guitar, and I've forgotten his name. I think his name wasn't Eddie Gomez or something like that, but it was something like that. And this guy was playing guitar, and then he just did a somersault while he played. Landed on his back and did one of those hip hop breakdancing moves where you just do 360 on the floor and still carried on playing. I thought it was the best live guitar show I've ever seen. I don't even remember Kane. What's his name? Who played for Alice Cooper? Kane or Kane, somebody. He was a big bodybuilder guy, wasn't he? And I'm sure he had something like a gun strapped to the guitar, and it was just shooting out things. And then Kiss, with the flames coming off the or Wasp.
Kane Roberts.
All the favorite bands are coming out now. Wasp. I couldn't say that it's ever been like an indie or alternative band because I always find the live shows so boring. I've got to be honest. I do find them boring. It's shoegazing, isn't it? At the end of the day,
we've talked about that before as well. The difference between production and in live. You can sit and appreciate music and an album and the whole story of it.
That's something else. Performance is something else. You could say that watching, Steve Vai is a live, for a live performance. Is amazing to watch. I couldn't watch it too many times, but I could watch it once and go, "Wow!" The whole. But those guys go that extra step. They'll get their hair dryers on stage, and the hair will be going.
I could do it with
Alice Cooper, I think it is, and his hair goes on fire.
Sorry, I got to mention one other. I got to mention, if personally speaking, if it was just watching somebody play the guitar and it raises the hairs on my forearms, it would be somewhere between Tom Morello, Jimi Hendrix, and Prince. Somewhere between those three guys, just like, wow. Tom Morello, just for that thing that he's a band guy and it sounds like hip hop to me, but it's rock and roll, and it's dead straightforward. Marshall, one guitar sound, overdrive, distortion, whammy, whatever. It's just a band sound, and the two bands that really knock me for six when I hear them. One's Rage Against the Machine, and the other is System of a Down.
Yeah.
The two that I just love seeing live.
Yeah,
I think I seen Rage Against the Machine at Tea in the Park. Headlined a Sunday night a while back.
A privilege.
That's away.
So I've seen that band live. Yeah, that's a privilege, you know. For anybody who's seen something like Jimi Hendrix, I never saw him live, but I actually worked with the late Noel Redding. I was in a band with Noel Redding, his bass player.
Right.
So a lot of things people don't know about my history.
Paul Weller as well. What was he doing?
Well, the loveliest men in rock and roll, in rock music. I can't say enough about that guy. I should be saying it about Ian Brown, which I do, and I would say, but that guy is the ultimate gentleman, and musically, the depth of his knowledge in music and his love for music, second to none. Yeah, I can't sing his praises enough. And Ian Brown, you know. And then I've had the privilege of working with Andy Rourke and Mike Joyce. I had a band with them when I launched my solo album. It was recorded with a whole bunch of guys, and Steve White as well played drums on it. But Mike Joyce and Andy Rourke were my band, or the band we created, even though it was under a title of a solo album. But, you know, lovely guys, great players, very influential. And I watched the discourse between people as, you know, who did what on this album and I don't think people pay enough credit to the fact that you're there in a band. You can be the pillar of a band, and when you go, it's all over. And you're probably the guy that the people don't appreciate. But everything you do is influential in a band, and don't take it lightly. You know, it might be the old sketch of the drummer owns the PA or whatever. Well, that's why it's in the band. But still, people have such influence. Just their strength, or it's like watching the MJ thing. You know, there's such strength coming from Scottie Pippen and, you know, from Dennis Rodman and the manager, whoever, or the upstairs. And you just don't know behind the scenes in a band why people do what they do. You know.
There's
Soundgarden with Kim Thile, you know, and things like that. And the late Chris Cornell, you know, the influence of the drummer, the bass player, you know, Kim's playing. It's next level. It's only when you love a band and you research into that band and who's in the band. And that's what I loved about vinyl, that you could read a lot about it. And now you can Google, of course. YouTube will give you loads of insights.
But that was it. I mean, that was something. There was a documentary called Hired Guns, which Andy put me onto, which was basically a load of guys that were either session or they would go on tour with bands.
People forget Jimmy Page was a session guy. You know, what's his name? Oh gosh, another metal block. One of the greatest British guitarists, you know, around at the same time Clapton, but Jeff Beck.
Jeff Beck
was a session guy, but you wouldn't think that, you know, because these guys were.
But it was like you said, it was really interesting because they talked about how they maybe didn't pick the best bassist in terms of ability, or they didn't pick the best guitarist. And it was
what is the best bassist?
But it was more what it did for the band. They had, you know, because this is who you're going to be with on tour for however many months. You know,
look how talented Led Zepp's bassist is. You know. Look how talented he is. He played the keyboards, and you listen to tracks like No Quarter and that beautiful, you know, keyboard playing of his and sound that makes that track and then switches to the bass. And he does lectures, you know, he travels the world doing big lectures, and you can tell the intellects and the talent. But Jimmy Page is more popularized, and Robert Plant is more popular. John Bonham, you know, his drum sound. And John Paul Jones is probably one of the most influential players in that band. Yeah, you know? And maybe that for some of the greatest names for Metallica and whoever it may be. You can tell I love my metal and I love my rock.
Yeah.
And I grew up on Lizzy, really, and that's one of my favorite bands of all time, Thin Lizzy, because of that Celtic influence and the Scottish, Irish, American joint kind of thing going on there. It's just superb.
Yeah. What do you listen to? Is there any new stuff like it's come out in the last year or two that you're into?
I listen to demos that people send me a lot, and I listen to. I mean, I love my hip hop, so I suppose listening to rap artists and who's Dre working with, who's Timbaland working with, and things like that. Really, I get off on. There are new bands that I listen to, but it generally tends to be from other genres, from quite strange genres, and so I know I'm not naming any names right now, but it's only because I tell you, for instance, as guitar playing goes, there's new kind of there's new forms of rock music like math rock and things like that. And I've been checking out bands like that and acoustic players and things, and guys like Andy McGee kind of triggered things like that, and Tommy Emmanuel, and great acoustic players who really set standards and new forms of playing a guitar. And it's like I've forgotten the name of the band, but there's a young Oriental girl that plays guitar, and she taps on it. It's like she plays a green sparkle, orange sparkle guitar, and there's new players in the States. There seem to be quite a few. There was a band I was watching, and I've just forgotten the name of the band again. They're called. I found them through YouTube, just watching one thing after another, and young players, only 18, 19, 20 maybe now, and I've forgotten the name. Let's move on. But that's hard to say. I do watch new bands, but it generally tends to be off YouTube.
Mm-hmm.
In all honesty, it tends to be off YouTube, and I'll watch all manner of bands from there, from math rock bands to acoustic players to just very obscure players.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe they're not even songwriters. Sometimes, I love songwriters. I've only ever really worked with songwriters most of the time, from Ian Brown, Paul Weller, Mick Hucknall to Donovan. Worked with Donovan for a while. Not the home and away geezer, the other one. Sorry, do you want to ask another question? Is there any more questions left we can get through before we run out of time?
I know I think we've already run out of time, but we'll get another two questions in.
Go ahead.
What have you got there, Rooney? Joe?
We've got Joe's. Is there a new sound you're excited about that's not been done before, or something different that you're hearing?
Yeah. There is. Joe, I'm working, like I said, I love technology, so I'm not prejudiced or biased in that way about purism and stuff like that, because it is what it is. If that's what rocks your world, then I'll stick with an AC30 or a Marshall JTM 45 or a Fender Deluxe or something. But that's not it for me at the moment. I found that between my Line 6 Helix and my Kemper and my iOS devices, that's where it's really at for me. That I can run a quadraphonic guitar sound. That's the first thing. So I'm developing like this quadraphonic sound. Secondly, that I've discovered new forms of effects. My new form of playing, what really excites me, is being a DJ on guitar. Is DJ guitar. I love great DJs. If you say that I was watching new things, what I'm really watching is DJs and the way that they perform live, and their shows are just brilliant, amazing. The good ones, how they entertain a crowd, how they keep people entertained, how they keep the dance floor full. You watch footage of a band, it's like self-indulgent, not caring about an audience. And then you watch some DJs who've got rammed out a place. The sun's shining, they're on the beach, people are loving it. And that's what I'm trying to inject into guitar playing, and I found that working with iOS, that I can use virtual mixers. I can create effects that I normally can't create with pedals, because I've got more control. I can add more of them. I can run multiple parallel channels, and create new sounds that way, and they'll be in sync with the track, because I'm doing what DJs do. I'm syncing up channels. They're syncing up the decks, or I can sync channels and run different effects on them and create weird and wacky sounds through plugins, AUV3 on iOS, audio units, which you can tell I'm excited about this. Audio units, which are free. Are they £4, £5? That gets me excited. That even now in budget works, and you can create new music in this way, like I said, using multiple outputs on Helix to create quadraphonic sounds, and then splitting the effects on those outputs and creating rhythms between 4 speakers. Do you see where I'm going? It's not all been done. You can create so much today. You don't have to be just, saying to your own limitation. If you open your eyes, you'll find there's so much out there and affordable. That's why I work with mobile devices, because they're affordable. You can get secondhand ones, or that shop down at the marketplace, and there'll be a geezer selling knockoff ones or secondhand ones, and
the Nokia.
Sorry,
the Nokia, not the
Well,
a lot of the bigger programs and plugins, they do that rent to own now, so you can pay like a £10 a month for
so many ways. But there's enough on there that are free. That's why I say on that platform and on Android there are plenty of free ones, and they're superb. I mean, that in itself is, I could go on and on and on. There's so many of them. But you got to research it. You got to get on YouTube. You got to watch people using them, try them out, and
a prophecy, possible Aziz residency in Ibiza. There we go, mate. That'll be the next one.
I love that.
Oh, we'll need to get you on the podcast once you're out there in the sun and the sea.
Have you been out to Ibiza?
I've never been.
It was a few years ago, but I've been. I've got a few stories from there. Right? I've got a couple of stories from there. Right?
I mean, okay, there's a certain scene that you go and do whatever you're doing, but me, that sunshine, that sand, beach, music, I mean,
I'm still waiting on you saying something bad there. It just sounds great. Everything else is fine.
Come back with an even better sunshine than I've already got.
There you go.
Aziz love it. But seriously, I think watching DJs at work, I find so many tricks that they use, and when I say tricks, I just mean routines of like a guitarist has things that we use, like the pedals we use, or the amps we use, the guitars we use, tricks of the trade. DJs have the same thing. It's like the first thing I knew about DJs was crossfading. So I thought, how can I crossfade from one sound to another? And I worked that out on the Helix, because you can assign the pedals to do a crossfade, like the expression pedal, just to go from one channel to the other channel with a completely different sound. And a Kemper can do that too. You can walk between 2 different sounds. So that was the first thing, crossfading. How did DJs crossfade? So I got into that. And then there's a whole world opens up, a really exciting world.
Always when you blend 2 things together, you came up with something, and like you're saying,
layering things.
Do you know what I mean?
So DJs are into currently use stems. They layer stems. Now stems are fantastic because you really have to understand equalization, filters and frequencies, and then you can layer, and each stem can sit in a certain frequency. And I thought about that myself, of why can't I run an amp which only sits in a certain frequency, and the other amp or guitar sound runs another frequency, and I can crossfade or I can blend them. So there's there's a lot to be learned from DJs. Good DJs know so many great things about creative live production on stage. And I think that's where it's at for me, live production. And then, I mean, I got sounds which really inspire me. I mean, I pull down pedals again, like this one here. This is a company called Old Blood Noise. And this is like the Black Fountain, which is based on an oil can delay. And this is a beautiful reverb where the tremolo is only on the reverb. It's absolutely fantastic. The procession and the Black Fountain oil can delay technology. Some companies make absolutely inspiring pedals, and that company, an American company from, funny I mention it, from Akron, Ohio, is a home of LeBron James.
It is.
Probably the greatest basketball player in the world. There's another one they do called the Dark Star. It's like a reverb mixed with a ring modulating style bit crusher, and it's really creative pedals. So
amazing.
It's just finding things that inspire you to make new music, really, and new sounds. And it doesn't necessarily have to be, like I said, about the iOS and Android technology. It can be about the pedals. They can inspire to new sounds, new sonics. I'm trying to get away sometimes of playing notes, and I'm trying to create moods and textures and inspirational noise. That's like, rebelling against the note in a sense.
Yeah, that's the next level.
I made an ambient song, and I changed the tunings to 432 hertz, which they say is the Earth's.
Heard that some frequencies sit better with than others. Tuning 440, it's down, and it's why a lot of guys detune the guitars from E to E flat, like Hendrix did, and a lot of bands did. And because you can see the whole world of metal now and things, the detuning brings certain moods across, doesn't it? It's so much better.
This was just 432 hertz was the standard tuning up until 1950 something. They changed it to 440.
Right. I didn't know that, but
original classical tuning is, and apparently that's the Earth's frequency. So
I think there's so many aspects of it beyond just
your brain.
Yeah, definitely. And the sound, the tone, the vibrations, all manner of things affected by that as soon as you change it. I work with open tunings on acoustic guitar, and I like open tunings because of the resonance that the strings cause. When you tune strings to certain notes, and that's like the principle of a lot of Indian classical music instruments. The resonance that those notes create when they overlap, natural reverb of an instrument.
Funny enough, I only played Open D for the first time. They're playing it with tunings, and I've just never
great tuning.
I've just never bothered, but I think I could find something on that. So I was like, all right, here we go.
Really, that's a rabbit hole. That tunings, open tunings. I bought a book years ago on alternate tuning before there was any internet. Just to see people like Joni Mitchell, what she used for open tuning, and other artists. Really interesting.
Yeah, that was what got me into all the open tuning, was the whole Laurel Canyon scene, because so many people out there, they're like, there was open tuning and then they're capoing only half of the strings, and you're just getting this unbelievable stuff.
You can make up tunings as well. Put the capo somewhere and you're off. I don't think I have got a guitar, one last guitar, eh?
So there we go. That's it. Absolutely, mate. Let's do it. Gareth came up with the worst question of the night, though, mate. LeBron or Jordan? That's a whole podcast on
LeBron or Jordan.
He's left Kobe out as well. He's left Kobe out as well.
Yeah, exactly. In between that, Kobe. But then, as Jordan says, Kobe's the guy that just robbed his moves.
That's it, man. AJ's man.
And he was, you got to put Kobe in there as well.
Yeah,
and that
absolutely.
trio. But this is a 12-string. This is a Again, it's by that company called Godin. It's called the A12. It's a beauty guitar. It's one of the few 12 strings you can play as a solo instrument. So I use an open tuning on this. I think it's DAD, ADE, something like that. I made the tuning up, but it's really good for those kind of... You can get some great chords out of them.
Sounds huge.
Pardon?
That guitar sounds huge. Just coming.
You know, I really like it for that kind of thing where I can play some kind of Indian classical stuff on it. It's hard to play it up like that, but... I love it for that kind of thing. So I tuned a 12 string to an open tuning, and they sound great. So
yeah, it's absolutely massive. That it did, didn't it, coming through that mic?
Amazing.
Oh, well, yeah, of course. Sorry, I forgot that. Isn't the mic's picking it up, isn't it? But yeah, open tunings, that's another world. But
yeah,
I'm glad I got to share some of these guitars with you.
No, absolutely amazing. Thank you so much, man. I'm
really
delighted to have you back on and talk more and talk about the next bit, man. That would be
anytime.
Awesome.
I can go through all my pedal collection. I can just pick them myself over
just
here.
do a one podcast about that. Just
and yours and my favourites. Don't forget this.
Oh.
The old line. This is an original one. You can tell because of the logos cast into the actual chassis, whereas the new logo is different. But that's like I don't know what songs I've got written on it. Oh yeah, some of my songs of my album. But you know that who hasn't got one of these?
Amazing, unbelievable. It's
pleasure. Yeah, it's been an absolute pleasure to do that. Share a mixture of things. Talk a bit of basketball. Talk a bit of music. Bit of DJ.
That's it. Oh, that's what we're here for, man. We're absolutely delighted with it. Andy's beautiful. Sorry, mate.
I think what I should do is I should just get a little. I'll put it on my iPad and just get a whole list of the different eras and the bands I was in at that time. Talk about a couple of minutes on each band. Oh, this is my metal phase, and this is when I was. This was in a prog rock, and this is when I was in reggae, and this is in rockabilly. You know, a lot of that. The reason I say that is because I very rarely actually get the opportunity, you know, to share anything outside of the Roses, because obviously that's the first question on most people's lips. Because I do speak openly about the Roses, and you know, I'm accessible, I suppose. I'm easily accessible. You know, I'm not kind of. I am reclusive. You know, I don't go out a lot. Because I'm too busy writing music or playing music. And but I do, when it comes to, you know, insights into my life and where I've been or what bands I've been in and the experiences, you know, I share those openly. I don't see why I should. You know, I'm not cool. You know, I'm not cool. It's just that other people are cool. You know, Ian Brown's cool, John Squire's cool, Manny's cool, Rennie's cool, you know, Mike Joyce is cool, Andy's cool, you know, that kind of Morrissey's not cool, and Johnny Marr's cool, you know, that. So it starts there. You know, I'm just a kid who's on a long, you know, in Longside on a council estate who was lucky, fortunate to have been in some great bands, I had some great experiences in a sober state of mind, and
Yeah.
as an inside observer who can actually share more insights than some of the ragbags can tell you, you know, who make shit up.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
it's what sometimes you just don't know what to ask. That's how when I originally contacted you, I was like, "Is there anything you don't want us to say?" And you're like, "Nah, just."
Well, John wants to actually. Cheers, John. That's really nice. Really nice.
Nah, man,
you know where I'm coming from. I think
absolutely. It's a different. And I think that's what we always want to do with it. You know, with the podcast, and it's just we just love music, man. We just want to talk music. We want to talk, and it's amazing to get the difference of your influences, and like that's the thing, you know, about. And I'm with you about the Desert Island Disc question. You just can't. You can't pick a tune. You can't. We had a podcast the other week where it was like the greatest songs of the last decade, which turned into an absolute just a pissing contest. Like it was ridiculous. We just like this is a waste of fucking time. We're still waiting, still trying to create something, and it's actually getting longer and it's getting shorter. And this, you know, but it's because and this is like for me, that's the worst decade. We're going to go back to some seriously classic decades that are going to be a nightmare. But
I can imagine. I mean, you look, I'm 56 years old, so you could talk how many decades with me, you know, right back to the 60s when I was born, learning music in the late, you know, early 70s, and the bands I was in and the bands I was in the 80s and the 90s. But the one thing that you probably know that I can't hide, it's obvious, is my love and excitement about music right now is just overflowing. You know, I got too much to do. I got too much to do to be retired and looking at, you know, those, sorry, we have mirror image, you know, discs on my wall and reminiscing. I got too much to learn and too much to do and new shit to write. That, you know, I'm excited, and I don't want to hear anybody grumbling and moaning. There's plenty to do, plenty to learn, plenty of things to enjoy. Even in this condition that we're on, where we haven't mentioned, and I'm glad we didn't mention it because I'm so sick and tired of those words. No, I don't even want to say the words, you know, they're really sick. People like yourself and me and people who've been asking questions, you know, we live, you know, for life. Come what may, you know. And you can tie down our arms and our hands or you know, gag us or whatever, but we'll find a way. We'll always find a way.
Absolutely, man. Absolutely. It's awesome, and I love it because I think you're getting to see music in a totally different way just now, and I think people are being far more open about their music. You know, there's people that I know that have been a wee bit hesitant about releasing things or wanting to do this, and they've got no excuse. There's no excuse now. It's
no excuse. And you also got one lesson that I learned, and I got to say, I've got to go back to 1996, which obviously was the demise of the Roses when I joined the band, and the lesson that I learned is that, you know, people absolutely love music in a way that I just can't describe. I can remember walking into a tent in, it was probably Reading. It was probably the Reading Festival. Walking in a tent and seeing all these other bands who became even bigger financially. Well, not even financially speaking, because the Roses have really coined it in the last decade. But they were absolutely in awe of the Roses. And I was in the Roses, but I didn't think they would be in awe of me because I didn't feel like, because I knew, you know, I hadn't written those songs. You know, the band had written them, John had written them, whatever. But I was observing and I was thinking, look at these bands, you know, whether it's the Manics or whether it's, you know, Coldplay or whoever it was. And, you know, they were all like, they were yapping away. And as soon as we walked in, it just went, quiet. And I thought the influence of this band and the people that love this band and this music, they see something and enjoy something. that no other band gives them, and
Yeah.
there's something so inspirational about that, and something to be learned about music. Not just music; it's beyond music.
Mhm.
That's what I
Yeah.
learned from the Roses. It's beyond music. That there's more to music than just music.
Yeah.
Oh, aye.
That's that. Just on what you said earlier about not being cool. That story you just told there
Aye.
makes you infinitely cooler than anybody I've ever came across. Like that. I don't know anybody else who walked into a room and it's went dead silent. I'll be honest. That was the coolest thing that's ever.
I can't
been
watch
said.
those videos, bro. I watch them. I watch those videos, and I look at myself in Reading interviews, and I think, what a fool. I look at myself, I think, what a fool. Who do you think you are? You think you're cool, don't you, with your cheap sunglasses and, and your shirt that's too big for you, and you and you're trying to be somebody you're not. You're in a band with some of the coolest people on the face of the earth, and and it's like you just don't know. It's not natural to you. And
Yeah.
just relax. And I'm talking to myself in the video saying, just relax. Just don't say anything now. Sit down. And that's the best anecdote I can share with you about Reading
Yeah.
'96. Most people ask me, about stepping into, Noel Gallagher says, stepping into John Squire's shoes and the hardest job in the world. And in actual fact, that's the best story for me, is what a fool I was. Just coming out of the mouth, the clothes I was wearing, going into a situation which I couldn't handle, I did not understand, and I could not handle, and a form of music, a genre of music that was just not my genre of music.
Yeah.
Thrown in the deep end, thrown in the deep end. All right. Imagine somebody who plays, I don't know, Indian classical or something, and then has to play lead guitar in Metallica. I don't know. It's just not, and to wear the clothes.
Yeah.
It's not just the music; it's the clothes.
I agree,
Yeah,
man.
It's not just the clothes; it's the being yourself. That's what it is. It's learning something about honesty and about integrity and about having the courage to stand up and be you.
Mhm.
Yeah. Most bands that I know that from that era, whether it be Shed 7 or whoever it may be, are inspired by that band, or like Oasis are inspired by that band, or Noel is, or Liam is, that you're inspired, and then you go on to create something, with those kind of values. I think you come away with those values.
Yeah.
What's your thoughts on Noel's stuff he's been bringing out? It's a wee bit different as well.
Not heard it, to tell you the truth.
Then in Noel's eyes went kind
I
of.
wish I could answer that question, but I don't really listen to. I mean, if I was listening to music that's released at the same time, it'd be what Timbaland's putting out.
Yeah.
It'd be on the hip hop front, really. I wouldn't be listening to any indie schmindy. Yeah.
Well, I'm never releasing a song ever then. That's
Don't listen to
that's
me.
it.
I'm just taking a mic. I do.
Yeah.
Like I said, you can tell that I'm not looking for. I'm looking for music that inspires me from other forms of music.
Yeah.
I'm looking for instruments which are otherworldly. I'm looking for sounds which are otherworldly. So the last thing I'd be listening to is probably a Noel Gallagher solo album.
I don't know. He's went kind of almost 80s at parts with it, and he's changing it up,
Yeah,
which
it's
I
got
like.
that.
I like to get people doing
I
something
believe
different.
so. I mean, I'm not knocking. I would never knock the influence and the respect the man deserves. That's not what I'm saying at all. But I believe so. I mean, even if you listen to that sound he created, and obviously with Bonehead as well. Don't knock. Let's not forget that Bonehead also created that sound. That wall of sound is the two of them, not just one person. And he's gone on from there. But he loves the instrument, and the guitars he has, and the collections he's created, and the amps, because he's educated himself as Paul has, Bonehead has. Two, as far as I'm concerned, two great guitarists. I don't look at guitar like you would think that I look at it technically, but I don't. I look at it from what I've learned, and I changed. After 95, 96, I changed. And I realized look beyond the instrument and look at the person and how they put themselves across.
Yeah.
And that's what I hear now in anything, any art form. I look for that person's, heart. Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
Oh well, that's nearly 9. I think we're going to wrap up because we're only meant to do an hour.
It's all right.
That's it. You get some food to get as well.
I know you're looking forward to your food.
I know.
Oh, what time is it?
5 to
9. Oh, that's great timing. I can go and do my watch. I can go and do my wash, my preparation, and then, lay out my bowl of fruit. Or my girl might lay out the fruit for me. She's really good at that. Such care and love. and then go and do my prayers, and then stuff my face.
Oh, amazing.
Well, there'll be a lot of faces being stuffed in Glasgow and Edinburgh. I know that much. Big Muslim populations. But you know what? I love that. I love the fact that I love music, and I try and keep with my traditions, my culture, my religion, my faith, whatever my beliefs are anyway, which are personal. But even so, a Pakistani Muslim man, can share with other peeps in great music, and I've had the same experience, and there'll be no difference between us. That'll be our common bond. That music is our common bond.
It's universal, man. It's universal. Always. I just want to thank you again, man. I really want to appreciate it.
Thank you, guys.
It's been such a pleasure. We would love to have you back on whenever you'd be willing to join us. Thanks everybody for tuning in.
Maybe we can do a Christmas special.
There we go. We'll have some indie Christmas #1 out that you'll despise, mate. That'll be great.
Christmas special, yeah.
But
by that time, I'll be able to work out StreamYard, and I'll play some music from my end and so forth. And
that'd be good.
That'd be awesome. That would be absolutely awesome.
We'll have all the instruments ready instead of me run out of picture.
That's it.
Christmas special.
That'd be perfect. But no, thanks again. Thanks everyone for listening, and we'll see you all again soon. Cheers.
Cheers.
See ya.